So today I'm going to be talking about Virtual Agent, and this is new to the London release. And what we're going to be going over today is obviously what is Virtual Agent and some of the value it provides to our customers, why it's important, why this is a big deal for the London release. We're going to be going kind of, doing a little bit of an overview, a technical deep dive about, some of the scripting in Virtual Agent, how it works from an architecture perspective. And then we're going to be going into a demo. And then at the end, we'll open it up to Q&A for you guys to ask questions about, how it works and other things like that. So it's kind of, a quick overview of what we'll be doing today with Virtual Agent. Obviously, before the London release, what there was Connect. And basically, this is a way for end users to interact with, chat with support, right? They could come into the service portal and they could initiate a chat. It would get routed to a chat queue, and then a chat would, start with the support agent. Now what they've introduced in the London release is this virtual agent. And what this is basically a way, it's a virtual bot that people can chat with. They can do things like submit tickets. They can order things in the service catalog. They can look up approvals. They can do other things like that. And this is really important for various different reasons, which I'll start talking about. But this is a big leap forward for ServiceNow, kind of helping alleviate some of the manual intervention that goes into chat within ServiceNow. And obviously, I'll be showing this a little bit more within the demo. But there's the prompts, there's the user responses. And then basically, the workflow will be followed, which I'll show you guys a little bit more during the demo and when I go into ServiceNow. So the value proposition, right? So why is this important? And I think, everyone, this is big here because this is about when we're talking to our customers, why do they want Virtual Agent? Why is this important to them? Why is this important to our customers, right? So it's driving a self-service based model. There's less manual intervention with the chat queue. As a result of this, maybe an organization would need to hire less people to actually support chat. Instead of having 10 people staff, they might be able to have 5 because a lot of people are able to, solve their issues through this virtual chat agent, right? And it's automating a lot of common tasks that people were manually doing, like having the help desk open a ticket. They're able to order things, process approvals. If they have a catalog task, they could update it automatically through there. They wouldn't have to go into the tool, right? So it can really help you, when you're working with ServiceNow. It gives you a way to, and actually, instead of going through the tool, this chatbot can actually do a lot for you, which is really great. So the different components of what makes this up. So obviously, there's the conversational client interface, and what this is the actual frame set that you'll be having the chat in, right? So this is where you're actually doing the interaction, with chat. This is where you'll be talking with the virtual bot within ServiceNow. You can also do integrations with Slack and Microsoft Teams, which is really cool, and that comes kind of out of the box. They support both of those integrations. So you can kind of do a lot of these same things that I'm going to be displaying today through Slack and Microsoft Teams. And this is big as well, being able to integrate with those two tools, which a lot of organizations are using. So the designer. So a lot of you have worked with workflows in ServiceNow, right? And what Virtual Agent Designer is basically the tool that is being used to help drive these conversations within ServiceNow. So this is, where you would have your decision making. If a user, inputs a certain question, the tool might respond a certain way. And the predefined topics for these are customer service management, HR, and ITSM. So, if your customers are using CSM or HR, this is also applicable to them as well. This is not just restricted to IT service management. And live agent support, obviously, if they're not able to resolve their issue through the chatbot, they can get routed to a live agent, and I can show you guys how to do that when we get to the demo. So the plugins. So there's a few different plugins as part of the implementation process, which you'll need to turn on. The first is the Glide Virtual Agent plugin, and of course, this is the core plugin that is needed for Virtual Agent, right? And then additionally, on top of that, what that core plugin gives you is really the ability to actually use the virtual chatbot, right? And then on top of that, though, there's the pre-built conversations. And what those are actually ways when people input certain questions, the tool knows how to respond to them. And ServiceNow gives you this kind of pre-built conversations for you to use, which is really nice. For the demo today, what I'm going to show you guys is the ITSM Virtual Agent. This is the most commonly used one. And this really covers a lot of predefined topics like opening a ticket, like ordering something, like processing an approval or other things like that. So that's what I'm going to be demoing today. But again, Virtual Agent is supported for human resources and customer service management. So if you guys wanted to go and demo that for your customers, those are the additional plugins that you would need to activate. And so kind of the way you can think of the plugin for virtual agent conversations is these predefined workflows that they're giving you when you're doing this. So scripting. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more of scripting when I get into this, but basically it's still using things like Glide Record, but there's a few different things on top of that you might need to know. So the first is user input variables. So basically, this is a way that you're able to capture user responses to certain questions, right? And then determine which way you want to route your workflow depending on that. So the way that you would do that in the syntax for that, you can use VA inputs and then defining your variable. And basically, you can capture what a user responds to a certain question by doing that VA inputs. For example, if you would say, and I'll show you guys this, VA inputs dot name equals Josh, you could route. The other thing is script variables. So for those of you that are familiar with Scratchpad in the native ServiceNow, basically what this is, you can define variables that the workflow would use throughout it. And this is kind of, it's very similar to the Scratchpad, except this is like Virtual Agent's version of the Scratchpad. And you can define these variables and directly within it, and I'll show you guys how to do that as well. So what I'm showing right now, and I'm going to show this in the demo as well, is kind of an example of these user input properties and variables, right? So, for example, if you had a variable called short description and the variable name was short description there, you can capture what that user responds to that short description by doing incident short description, right, equals VA inputs dot short description. And that would be exactly what the user responds. So what you're looking at here, and I'll show this in the demo that I have, is this is the insert of an incident. And basically, just depending on what the user responds to the short description, like my computer is broken, that's taking the input that they put in, and that's setting it to the incident short description. So now what I'm going to do, we're going to go into ServiceNow, and I'm actually going to show you some additional things and do a quick demo of this and how it works. So the first thing that you're going to do, obviously, is activate those two plugins, which I've actually gone ahead and done before this. So I've activated the core virtual agent one as well as the ITSM conversations. So that's what you guys are going to be seeing during this, but you'll see in here that I actually have the ITSM virtual agent conversations. This is a scoped application. So I'm currently in that application scope. So that's how I'll be editing it during this as well. And that comes as part of the activation plugin. So if I go into the tool and I type in virtual here, you'll see that we get to the collaboration application, and then under that, there's the virtual agent application that comes as part of the module activation here. So the first thing that we'll go over, there's a few basic things, right? There's things like a welcome message. So this is what you'll see when the chat first starts when you log onto the virtual agent. Like, how can I help you? You can change this. You can also change things like how often, the delay between messages, right? And that's supposed to make it seem like it's more of a real conversation that's happening. So basically, when you input something like my computer is broken, there is a certain delay of time before the bot responds back to you. So you can just respond, things like that. I mean, you can set certain things like that. If an error occurs on your workflow, you can set things like that as well. And also the topic selection message. And I'm going to be showing you guys this when I get to it. When I get to the actual workflows, basically are different topics. But this is basically the input message that the bot, says when you first log onto the bot, saying you can either type your message or you can pick a certain topic that you need help with. So basically what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you guys just a quick demo of, how something of this might work. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and I'm going to start off with doing, showing you these topics, right? And what these topics are basically the different conversation paths, you can think of them, with the chatbot. So think of things like, okay, I need to create a new ticket. I need to order an item. I need to reset my password, other things like that. All of these topics that you're currently seeing, if you don't activate the ITSM conversation module, you won't see any of these. So these all come out of the box with that. So this is what you get. This is what ServiceNow gives you. I think it's a pretty good base. And I'm going to kind of walk through one that I've actually made, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into some other ones that ServiceNow gives you that are a little bit more complicated. But for this one right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you one that I created for opening a ticket here. So open an incident, right? So here's what I've created for opening an incident. Obviously, you have the name. So this is what would actually display to the user when you pick a topic. You have the keywords that initiate it. So this is basically how ServiceNow would decide to run this specific topic. So if someone types in open an incident, this would be the path that would be followed. So you have these keywords that come up here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this actual editing the topic flow here. And what this is really similar to actually doing a lot of the stuff that you would see with a regular workflow, right? So if I go in here, you'll see that we have the, okay, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to start it when this actually gets kicked off on one of those keywords, right? So if I go in here, the first thing I'm going to do is actually ask the user for a short description of their issue, right? And I'm defining a variable name here, but the actual prompt is going to be enter a short description of your issue, right? So this is asking the user what's broken. You're defining a variable, and basically what this variable name is going to be used for is when the user responds back, you're able to access what they responded through this variable name. So, and this is just the name of the actual workflow activity, you might call it, within the workflow, right? So now as we proceed on down here, what would happen is the user would actually have the opportunity to respond to what is your issue, right? So this is where I would go in and I would type something like, my computer is broken. So if I go to this activity here with the actual create incident, and what this is, I'm actually running a script. And within this, we're doing a glide record to do an insert for a new incident. And you can see on line 5, we're actually taking the short description that the user responded with, that VA input, and we're setting that equal to the short description, right? And we're obviously setting other values on the incident. We're setting the contact type to virtual agents. Our customers can come in and they can report on how many incidents were created through that. And we're just doing a simple insert here. Then after that virtual agent, that new ticket is created, we're acknowledging that. So if I go in here, you'll see that we're responding with, thanks, I've gone ahead and created you a new ticket. So the user would be prompted with that response after the new ticket is created. And then lastly, what's going to happen is there's going to be a response from the bot that actually gives them a nice little square that says, here's your new ticket. Here's the URL to your ticket, so you can go ahead and click on it. And you can see that's what we're doing here in this title. We're just grabbing the URL of the instance, just doing some simple scripting to redirect the user to the newly created incident. And obviously this VA inputs, that's what's grabbing it from that previous script. We're getting that newly created incident, right? So that's what we're doing there. We're just doing some HTML to kind of render it as a box, and we're getting some fields within an array here to actually display those on the box that gets returned. So that's kind of what the back end of this looks like, right? Similar to workflows in ServiceNow, we have all these different, what we would previously know them as workflow activities, right? Or if you go to the core tab on a workflow within ServiceNow, this is like the virtual agent version of this, right? So we have text, so basically you can ask a user prompt through this. We have Booleans, so you can ask a yes or no question. We have carousels, so if you want to present the user with different catalog items, you can do that. We have images, so if you want to respond with an image depending on the answer to a question or something like that, you can do that. We can do links. So if you want to direct a user to a particular link or a particular page on the portal, depending on what they respond, you can do that. You can do HTML to render things like cards and make it look pretty when someone responds to something. You can do just basic script outputs, right? So you can script things. You can use Glide Record and things like script includes to look up particular things. So let's say you have a use case where you want your users to be able to find out all the assets assigned to them, right? What we could do is you could actually go and have that user say, hey, I want to find all my assets, and do a Glide Record to look up everything, all of their computers that are assigned to them, right? So you can do things like that, based on user inputs and do server-side logic to find certain records. So if I wanted to do a database action, right, I could go ahead and you can just drag these activities onto the screen. So you could do an action type of creating a record. You could update a certain record directly from there. So this kind of alleviates some of the scripting, actually. So instead of doing a Glide Record to update a particular record, you could just do one of these database actions, and you could select the table you want to go to, and you could do the actual the action type of creating or updating a record, which is kind of nice as well. You can also add particular fields in here as well for the record, and if you want to assign values to those records that you want to update, you can do that. So that just kind of makes it an easier way to update particular field values instead of doing any kind of scripting that way. So if I go into the tool here, I'm going to show you guys a few examples of other ones I've done. So basically the end user workflow would be they come into the service portal. When they click this widget here, instead of it launching you into Connect Chat, it actually launches you directly into Virtual Agent, and you'll see those messages pop up in the bottom here. And these are both configurable. You can change these to whatever you want. So these topics, each one of those different workflows is actually a topic, right? So if I come in here, you can see all of the different topics, and a bunch of these are actually just activated out of the box. But we could do something like, I want to see if I have my HR cert, right? And it turns out, yes, I do have my HR cert, or depending on if I respond something differently to HR cert, if I don't have it, maybe the tool responds a little bit differently, right? And and when the workflow actually ends, you see it just loops back to the beginning.
It's actually kind of useful.
We can do things like ordering an item, right? So this is actually like much more of an advanced workflow that we have in here. So if I wanted to order a new computer through here, it would look up, you can be presented with this nice carousel here, and this is obviously looking up to the service catalog. You can go through and you can order, things like I need a new adapter, right? And it would actually give you a link to just go directly to it. So that's the way, it would just take you directly to that catalog item, and you can go ahead and order it from here. So let's say the tool just wasn't working. Like someone was like, this is frustrating me. I can't find what I want. I have a really custom question. You also have the ability to actually contact a live agent. So if you just can't get a resolution, you can actually go and you can start a live chat with someone. And when you start that live chat, it's actually just going to route you directly to like a real chat queue. And this will kick off like the old process that you had in place before, where there's people at the help desk monitoring a chat queue, and they can go ahead and start it. So here's this one order an item, and you can see that these start to get really complicated and pretty long as you go forward, right? So you can actually execute contextual search, right? So the first thing that we have, like this is for ordering an item. Please enter a short description, and then obviously this is captured my response computer. There's a contextual search done on the variable name. So this is an example of contextual search, right? And it's doing that lookup. And then basically, this is very similar. This decision point here is really like doing like a bunch of if-else statements within the workflow. This works very similar to the same way that a workflow, like I don't know what we're even calling it, the old school workflow in ServiceNow, whatever you want to call it, right? And basically, each one of these different decision points here is running a script to say, okay, if the amount of catalog items returned is only 1, go this path.
Yeah.
This is actually, you can do another decision to split it out saying, okay, I found only one catalog item. Is there an image associated with that catalog item? So you can see this drops it down into this specific path here. So this is doing a lookup to determine is there an image available with that specific catalog item. So that's what it's doing in this particular one. You can have a much better like end of it, right? So at some point, you are obviously going to have an end, and you can have a confirmation message being like, okay, here you go. I've ordered your message, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I've ordered your catalog item. And then at that point, a new conversation would restart being like, anything else I can help you with. The other thing I wanted to cover too are these script variables, and I kind of touched a little bit on this in the PowerPoint, but you could kind of think of these script variables as the same thing as the scratch pad in ServiceNow. So you can create like, a default variable that you want to access through different parts throughout the workflow. So you could just call it like catalog item or something like that, and you could do like an integer or something like that, or you can you can run a function and have it return something. Basically, you can define these at the beginning too, and this is kind of nice because you don't have to be recreating variables throughout. You can just access them through various parts of the workflow. You can save things as an image. And the last part that you can also do is these integrations, right? So there's these native integrations with Slack and Microsoft Teams. So if you want to do a / command for virtual agent and have responses come up about opening a ticket, people don't even actually have to go into the service portal. They can do it directly from Slack. And have that same conversation that they would have in the service portal. This is another like selling point I would definitely say too. Like, you're talking to a customer, hey, do you guys use Slack? Do you use Microsoft Teams? It's compatible with both of those. Like just recently, I was working with a customer who really doesn't like the native chat, but this is going to open up new opportunities for them because they use Microsoft Teams, right? So definitely a lot of opportunity around there. And again, it is compatible with HR and CSM. So there's a ton of use cases you could get to there. Let's say you have a customer come into your portal and be like, hey, I need to escalate my ticket, right? Like, our whole network is down. I need this address immediately. You could have it done directly from that instead of someone calling up and being like, hey, what's the status of my ticket? Other things like that, resolving basic HR issues. You can do knowledge-based lookups. So, if someone has a question about paid time off, right? And they're in Slack, all they would have to do is just be like, what's our paid time off policy? What's our paternity leave, other things like that. So, or even like checking a holiday, right? You're in Slack, you want to see all the holidays. You could do it directly from Slack.
So there's a ton of opportunities with Virtual Agent. It's a really great product now included in the London release. Thanks again, everyone, for joining today. My name's Josh Brostoff. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at info@glidefast.com.